Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Brian here, having been away for all of Lent, coming back to content creation with this new Easter season. And what a week to be a gamer. What a week to be a gamer. I've been getting caught up, and I want to start with three basic topics for today's show. We're going to talk about Switch 2 pre-orders. I want to talk about Expedition 33, because if you guys have not played that game, it is an absolute must play, and it's very accessible, especially with Game Pass, as an option to be able to try it, especially for those who are questioning whether they like turn-based combat or not. And then finally, Marathon, a gameplay reveal. They lifted the NDA. Now more people are playing about it, but I thought, why not get the best roundtable in gaming together to talk about that with Joker and with Adam, or Advocate 05. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Do we want to just jump into Switch 2, or are you guys playing anything, or is there another topic just on your head that we want to start out with?
No, let's get into it.
All right, good, because there's just so much.
Unless you want to hear me complain about Final Fantasy 14 for an hour.
I do. Can we save that for next week?
Yeah,
Destiny 2.
Yeah, well,
I haven't been playing a lot of Destiny 2. So
it's bad.
I loaded up Court of Blades and then opted out.
Opted out with Court of Blades. All right, guys. Nintendo Switch 2. I was gone. So like I took a couple of exceptions. The second exception was the Switch 2 reveal, in which we saw some big prices, some big numbers. I was speculating that the Switch 2 would launch at $400, and I could see them doing like a $450 bundle with the game, but it's $450 and then $500. A lot of people, that was a big sticker shock for what they feel the console should offer, because all of a sudden you're starting to encroaching in that PS5 and Xbox Series X price range.
Right.
But then I think the real thing that a lot of people on the internet had was the price of these games, where they announced that established IP like Mario Kart, 80 digital, 90 if you want the,
90 physical.
Oh, it's like, and I know there's this, like, we've seen the decline of physical gaming, but we know that there's a passionate community that wants to physically have that card. And now it's like, hey, here's a little bit of a tax. It's not even
really a physical game on the card, isn't it? Just a like a key code to download a digital version?
Some are. So okay. how it's structured, especially from a cost perspective, obviously, if you have a card and you need that space on it, that card's going to cost you more, and Nintendo licenses you that card. So you, the developer, your costs go up with that, and the cost of the memory and how they've got that structured, yada, yada, yada. I get it. An option that they can take is cheap card with just key code license that doesn't have the data and you download it anyway. It feels like what Xbox One was kind of trying to do.
This is very reminiscent of Xbox One. I mean, think about it. It's like digital only, always online. Oh, there's a camera that's always going to be on, and everybody flipped the fuck out, right? Like, people lost their mind. It basically killed Xbox in the market share, if people remember. Because Xbox 360 won that console generation, like, unequivocally.
Oh, 360 for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then the Xbox One comes out, or they announce it, and you got Don Matrick up there going, "Oh, just like, just do it, like, whatever." Like, yeah. And people,
if you don't have internet, we have a product.
You don't have it. It's
the 360.
The year of our Lord 2013. You don't have internet. What are you talking about? Are you poor?
Oh, don't forget the DRM too.
Oh yeah, the DRM. That's what I was talking about, the always online and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so this is very reminiscent of that. But I also think people are, Xbox was ahead of its time in that respect. And I'm not saying that is a good thing. But when you look at what Xbox is trying to do, and then you look at what like Nintendo's doing and like how the industry has shifted overall, it's very much been going towards that. You don't own games, you rent games. It's everything's going to be a Games Pass eventually. Or Games Pass is going to be on everything. Microsoft is just ahead of the curve, and they're taking the hits on it right now.
Yeah.
But they're basically laying the foundation for what is going to be the industry in a couple of years.
Yeah.
If the industry doesn't crash. And I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's good to crash." What did it? And it probably should, especially when we're getting games like Clair Obscura made by 30 people on a shoestring budget.
30 people.
Sold for
buy
$50
that game.
Outstripped and spanks every AAA title I've seen in years. But not only that, I mean, graphical fidelity, it looks amazing. The
Especially
game is
PC.
actually small. It's I think it's like 40
less than 50 gigs. Right. Somebody was
40
like, what is
40 gigs.
AAA's
Runs, it just
excuse with
works.
200 gigabyte games with all of this overhead and production costs that they have to sell like 6-7 million to break even? And then they're like, yeah, people are trying to,
Yeah, just make a good fucking game.
Oh, you made, you sold 2 million. It's like, that's great. It's like, it
What's
used to
more
be,
wild is
it used to be great.
What's even more wild is these are all ex-Ubisoft devs, if I believe I'm not mistaken. And
Yes.
so, like, literally, Ubisoft passed on this game.
Yes.
Basically, Ubisoft passed on this game.
Let's
Well,
get
not
back to
just
the
that,
Switch 2 before we
well, not
get to
just-
Expedition
well, not just
33.
that,
Because like,
Elder Scrolls Oblivion
Well,
remake came out. And
you know,
it's like,
oh.
that's
So
a more
all that's
polished game
going in
too.
to say, like, with the Switch is basically you have this industry shift that has been taking place for years. I think they've conditioned people to be more accepting of like these price points, not owning their products. And then you have, the Switch come out and it's like, well, just, everybody like had the conspiracy theory that these prices were about tariffs and whatnot. And we're not going to get into that. I'm not a political commentator. But then the Nintendo of America guy came out and said the stupidest fucking thing I think I've ever heard somebody say. It's like, no, that was what we had already planned.
Yep.
You had plausible deniability, dude.
They could have been like, yeah, tariffs,
Shut
guys.
your mouth.
Oh man, we were
Shut
anticipating
the fuck up
it.
Friday, bro.
We're trying to cover our bases. Oh man, that's so funny.
Shut up, Friday.
Come on.
Did either of you guys go to pre-order? Like, are you picking up a Switch 2?
No.
No. Wow.
No.
I'm the odd man out. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
So my Switch, which like with the kids, like the Switch and the Xbox are the go-to, gaming options. The funniest thing, and I told this story when I took my little Linton, exception to talk Switch 2, was the number one question my kids were asking was, does it play Minecraft, Dad? And they didn't show Minecraft at all. Like, in fact, I was actually expecting some Xbox games to show at the reveal event, but we haven't got that. But we do know that's coming. I was like, yeah, don't worry. This thing is going to play Minecraft.
Everything.
But Minecraft already runs just fine on a normal Switch. So like, there isn't a real incentive power wise to jump into it. For me, the incentive is that my Switch is 8 years old. I've got 6 kids and they have destroyed that thing physically. I am looking for that hardware refresh to have like, yeah, this is all the Joy-Cons work. Everything right now works. And that's why I was like, yeah, I'm definitely getting on that pre-order.
I have 2 Switch ones, and my wife, she plays visual novels occasionally, every once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
And I haven't touched it since Pokemon Sword and Shield.
I haven't touched
the more recent Pokemon games, which is the only reason I really play Nintendo handhelds anymore, haven't like inspired confidence in the brand. So it's like I don't care enough about like what they're doing with the Pokemon franchise to like buy in like immediately.
Pal World is holding your beer. Like, it's like if you really wanted a Pokemon experience that you've been wanting for a while, and you can play that everywhere, so it's like, as opposed to like, you don't need to.
And now we have more than pals.
Wow,
come on, guys.
I haven't touched a Nintendo product since the GameCube.
Oh man.
Of course, that's funny because the more than pals thing is actually just doing what Pokemon does, but like in the Pokemon lore, it's all like on the down low. Like, nobody talks about Vaporeon IRL and Pokemon. Yeah. But now we have a dating sim in Pal World where you date the Pokemon.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So we got 2 no's and a yes on the Nintendo Switch side of things. I'm looking forward to getting hands on.
Oh, yeah.
Got it locked down for the 5th of June.
And I almost guarantee.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost guarantee, because we got these $80, $90 games. Grand Theft Auto is 100 easy, 100, 120.
Oh, yeah.
With probably $150, 200.
I'm going to be surprised if it isn't $100. Like, it like legit will be like, oh.
Yeah, my mind will be blown. I'll be like, they're actually taking it on the chin to get whoa. This is because that could be the biggest mega brain move. Come out at $60. Because I don't think 60.
I think they could still come out at 80 and still be the hero because everybody's expecting 100.
True.
Right. So it's like, hey guys, like, we thought about it, and while cost wise, like 100, like, I don't know how you market that. I don't know how you sell that, but I mean, 70 would also be a huge win, where it's like,
well, they don't have to say it. They just have to drop the price and everybody will do the talking for them.
Oh, for sure. It's like, hey, they could have done this. People I think for the most
It'll
part,
buy
just
so
that
much
franchise.
goodwill.
That brings up one little bit of a topic where we transition to the Expedition 33 stuff is with what Nintendo's doing. It seems like, and Doug Bowser talked about it in terms of variable pricing, which is something I've been kind of wondering that the industry was heading into. And Adam, you brought up, the Oblivion remake. That's at 50. Expedition 33 is at 50. And I'm wondering if this really will be a whole new era in which that new IP comes in no matter what at a lower price. $40 and $50 seems to still be a magical sweet spot for a lot of these games. And as long as you don't have a budget of your video game at 300 million, I think honestly you're going to see a lot of people try a lot of new things, like with the team behind Expedition 33. 30 people. Same thing with Light No Fire. They announced like it has like 12 people they were working on it. I'm sure they'll scale it up with more time, but smaller teams, more refined gameplay product, and then they're able to kind of bring it in at a more, I guess, mass market price. Because I don't know about you guys. I know, like I said this about the price of the Switch 2, and with games is like the one problem with, with inflation, because we know that if you go do the math on it, I paid more for my SNES than I just did for my Switch 2. And that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, but
however, my income has
argument.
not gone up. Well, I'm just saying the whole point of it isn't to say that inflation's the excuse. It's that our income has not even gone up to match. And so it's I feel squeezed. Like I feel squeezed, right? Right in
not even
that
just
check.
that, but like, you used to be able to rent games too.
Yeah. Well, that's
like,
Game Pass is trying to be that,
right. They're trying to fill that market.
Yeah.
But like, I used to be able to go to a Blockbuster and telling my age. I used to be able to go
banned
to a
from Blockbuster for a year, by the way.
like pick up Zelda or like Ocarina of Time.
That's
and,
how I played and beat Chrono Trigger.
5 months and then pay $20.
Same thing with Dragon Quest 2. I remember I wanted to go back and check it out, and there was a gap, and somebody had overridden my save. And it's like, no.
I remember used to be able to rent games at your local family video.
Yeah.
Rental place. Like, yeah. But I mean rentals. That's what Game Pass is now. Is a rental spot.
It is.
It's the Netflix of gaming.
Yeah. But like, pricing is just so outrageous, especially with game graphics cards, computer parts now too. It's like
right. And what it happens is people just consume less. Like people will just consume less. So it's
exactly.
Okay, I got the game. Like I got the Mario Kart bundle because that means Mario Kart's $50, whatever. But like, okay, $80, $90 is like, well, I used to, if you think about it, because generally, like I kind of did the math. I remember before I got married, I would buy a video game a month. And that was just like, $60 a month. That's my video game budget, yada, yada, yada. That's what I do. And then as I've gotten older, I do have Game Pass, which is basically that same kind of, it's like 2 games a year cost. And then maybe I buy a game or two. Like, it's like, I definitely buy way less games because I've offset it with Game Pass. And even with the price of Mario Kart, even with like the increase that they're going with here, that does mean I'm going to be more selective with my money, because while I can afford to take the $10 hit from a 70 to an 80, it comes down to a time thing. Like, am I going to get the value out of that product? Is that $10 going to justify? Am I going to get even a better experience? And some games, the answer will of course be yes. But I think the vast majority of games are just going to be no. And so you're going to see a lot of games. And that's why I think variable pricing is the thing that makes the most sense. Like if you have a quote unquote mid game, don't launch it at a premium price. Lower the price, you'll reset expectations, and people might forgive a lot of any kind of jank that they have.
And stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like, all right.
Well, we used to have this. It was called the AA industry and the single A, like independent. And there used to be this gradation. And then that industry basically, either you want to say a lot of it got bought out by Xbox, because they were trying to like buy basically everything. Or was just because price of making games, cost of making games, projects, failed, or Sony or EA or whatever, all these publishers come in trying to buy things, or pushing the industry towards like, we need the next Call of Duty, we need the next Fortnite, we need the next now I guess it'd be Marvel Rivals, stuff like that. I mean, dude, back in the day, how many Call of Duty clones did we have? Like
so
weekly
many.
Almost.
Yeah.
That were just causing studios to like
Honor
burn down.
it's Yeah. High Moon
and
Studios used to make good games, and now
yeah, and then you had like
part of that
studios like
ecosystem.
High Moon and Vicarious Visions. Vicarious Visions did like what
Vicarious Visions.
Skylanders and stuff forever, and then they became a support studio for Bungie for the better part of what 4 years.
Four. And then
that
Call of
was
Duty.
during the Destiny 2 development and during the Forsaken development. Vicarious Visions and High Moon did a lot of work on those games. Could you tell sense? But so you have the cannibalization of all these studios that basically result in less gradation, and then there's the publishers aren't seeing like, oh, well, I mean, why are we selling this? The Clair Obscura example. Why are we selling this? Clearly AAA product with clearly high production values. Why are we selling it for like $40-$50? They definitely could have sold that at a $70 price point and people would have been happy. But they are definitely making waves. They're definitely showing up the AAA industry by not only just creating a good product, which I mean, bare fucking minimums here, people. But they've created a good product. They've created a good story. Its music is fantastic from what I've heard. It's really done turn-based. It's innovated in the turn-based space. Took what Persona was doing, took what Final Fantasy 13 was doing, and did a lot of like really interesting stuff with the kind of like Dark Souls dodge mechanics while you're just waiting for the enemy to take their turn. So you're always engaged. And then, they've also like, I wouldn't say streamlined a lot of menus and items and stuff, but there's not a lot of junk. There's not a lot of wasting your time. The developers definitely respect your time. And again, 30 people, the game feels super optimized, from everything I've seen, everything I've read. It comes in at, 40 gigs or something like that. And, oh, hey, $50. I think it was like even cheaper, actually. It was like, it was on sale. So it was like 45 or something. In a lot of places, and then it's on Games Pass. And if you have Xbox Live, you're probably paying for Games Pass anyways.
Yeah.
So you
Absolutely.
got it for basically $15 a month.
Let's dive more into this game because I've been playing it. I've been looking forward to this game for a while. I've been following it. I've made a couple of videos on it, and now it is finally out in the wild. And it is a perfect game in my mind that it really appeals to every checkbox that I have out there. But I do want to start with a tweet because I saw this and it just resonated with me. I'm going to zoom in for those of you who are watching.
Yes, 100%. I read the first line. 100%. Yes.
It says from Sebi Webbs, for 20 years straight, Final Fantasy fans have been gaslit that no one wants turn-based combat, that it will never sell, that they're wrong for even wanting it. Expedition 33 destroyed that lie in a single day. And not only that, look back to last year, Metaphor. Look at Persona. Man, this in and of itself hopes that Square Enix, and I saw so many devs, Square Enix and the No Rest for the Wicked and the Moon Studios guys praising this game. And so it's so great that the industry in and of itself is celebrating the success. They tweeted out today that it is at 500,000 copies sold. I hope that keeps going up because they definitely have earned that money. But all that being said is that this is like that tweet is so resonated with me so much because of that fact. Square Enix has constantly said we got to appeal to a different audience, a bigger audience, a modern audience,
action game, Kingdom Hearts audience.
And it's not that I want Square Enix to be limited that they can't make an action RPG of Final Fantasy. I just think that I really hope that whether it's 17 and obviously people speculate 17 might be their another MMO, who knows based off the timing, but 17 or 18 or whatever ends up being their next single player game, that they pay attention to what Metaphor has done. They pay attention to what Expedition 33 has done and bring that to the audience and see if it sells, because if it doesn't sell, then they got a bigger problem. But this, I think, really does highlight how your combat system, if it's well thought out, here we go. It's more modern too, because I know Joker hasn't played it. Adam, you've played it. I've been playing it. And Joker, you said something to me before we went live about you're gonna finish up something and then you're gonna like play this. Maybe
I got a marathon video that's like an hour long. And so I'm like, And because I want to do like a proper review of this game,
Yeah.
so I want to give it all my time, all my attention. But like, so I'm like playing through Marathon, or not playing through Marathon, but I'm like going through this Marathon video. It's like my initial thoughts and then like thoughts after the alpha. And if you watch my content, it's more in depth than just thoughts. I've like gone through, scrubbed the internet, done the research, engaged in a conversation, see what people are having to say, and drawn an opinion from there. I would have liked to have been able to play it, but obviously, like, not a lot of people got in. Like, this isn't a like, oh, Bungie hates Joker thing. I do apologize if you hear sirens. This isn't a Bungie hates Joker thing. This is a like, I think I saw like maybe 6,000 people were playing on Steam or something like that. So it's a very, very small access alpha. But basically, I'm getting off topic here, but I was just kind of waiting. And same thing, I have Oblivion, I have Clair Obscura, and I'm just like waiting to like cleanse the palate with these games. I might stream Oblivion. That sounds like it'd be fun.
Yeah, Oblivion would be a fun game to stream because a lot of people have played it, and there's just so many different choices that you can make that gives you, you're like, oh, everybody you watch might be different from your own, as opposed to like a story narrative driven experience is like, oh, I kind of want to, I want to see your reaction, but only after I've experienced it myself. Yeah,
exactly. But like Oblivion, man, like think about that. That kind of, I mean, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it kind of came out of nowhere. And there's kids that like weren't alive when Oblivion came out, so they probably haven't played it. They basically just got a new Elder Scroll game out of nowhere.
True.
Like shit.
And a top tier one.
Yeah,
we're talking
like
about
the best one
here, but yes. Like, it is incredible. I've enjoyed it. Like, I love the quality of life stuff they brought in. Visually, it feels great. I really do hope that whatever work they're doing on Elder Scrolls 6 utilizes these studios, because it wasn't just, not Gearbox. It wasn't just whoever the hell they are, like Bethesda, who was working on it. There was a multi-studio project. Unreal Engine 5
specializes in remasters like this, because they did like the Fable one, they did,
but also in Unreal. And so it's like, like maybe this means something real positive for that game, that maybe 6 will also be having some kind of hybrid system with Unreal as well. I don't know, like,
this kind of like, to circle it back to like our overarching topic real quick. It's, you look at Oblivion, and Oblivion's coming out at like a very low price point, or free on Xbox if you have Games Pass. And you're looking at all of this, and it's like, okay, so this is a low price point. This is a low price point. And then you look at Zelda, right? Breath of the Wild, $80 for an HD upgrade. Like, I'm sorry, Nintendo, you can stick that where the sun don't shine.
And the one thing I gotta say,
I like about the market, because this gives plenty of gamers a choice, right? We vote with our wallets, whether you like, the noise online is one thing, but showing up and like, I decided I'm going to support this game, Expedition 33, Oblivion remake, and it's like, oh wow, maybe that sends good data vibes, so that the executives that somewhat are in charge have, like, hey, maybe we don't try to launch that, because if people show up and purchase the upgrade on the Switches for these games, well, that will become the standard, because they know that they can do that. But if nobody shows up for that and they just kind of sit around, well, maybe that means some good data points. Ultimately, I don't have a dog in that fight, because like, I know Sony is notorious for those upgrades. Xbox just makes it simple. That's why I've always kind of really enjoyed the vision of Xbox. I know a lot of people like to hate on that platform, but I'm like, I can, like, the DRM is reasonable. My games are my games. I still have like now my 360 library is there, Xbox One library, like it's preserved in some way. So I appreciate that. And then Xbox partnered up, and so they have the marketing rights for Expedition 33. I think that's incredibly smart. And the game being in Game Pass, I think, is incredibly smart. And I really hope that it encourages people to actually go in and play it. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts when you put out your video on this one, Joker, because hands down, I recorded my thoughts today, and this checks every box: sound design, voice acting, gameplay.
Yeah, because you got like Charlie Cox, who, for those of you who don't know, was Daredevil. And then you got Jennifer English, who's Shadowheart. She's 2 for 2, by the way. on games that I know her from.
Yeah.
That are like just game of the year, amazing works of art, because Baldur's Gate, obviously,
Mhm.
and now this. And then she's also the main character in the like King Arthur game that's coming out. That's like all like Final Fantasy-esque. I can't remember what that's called, but it looks really cool.
It seems like it's interesting. We're experiencing more Final Fantasy S games from studios that aren't Square Enix, and the devs for Expedition directly referenced that Final Fantasy was a great inspiration for them. Playing this game, I was like, did you call it an FRPG for a French based RPG, or does this fit that vibe for the JRPG? And for me, I feel JRPG the entire way through, even though it wasn't developed in Japan. And I think it really kind of shows what passion can do when given, the support it needs.
Yeah, this game, it's got this really nice bold art style. I mean, you just look at it, like everything's pretty. The character design, okay, so yes, the main character looks like Robert Patterson.
Yeah.
Voiced by Charlie Cox.
Make a movie of it, boys. Let's go.
It's got this like really cool kind of eldritch Cthulhuian horror to it, and it's you just kind of take it on the face of it, because its premise, it sounds outlandish, but then it also like portrays its premise like very well.
Yeah.
Well, the first half hour, you're hooked. You're hooked to the game. There's something happens.
Immediately.
We're not going to talk about it, and it's just emotions already pour out. I was
beyond that hook, though. The characters resonate with you immediately. Like the voice acting and the direction
is great.
But like all of that comes together, and I'm smacking my mic around. All that comes together, so it's like within not even 5 minutes, within a minute or two, I'm like, I like this character. Oh, this
trauma
is interesting.
bonding with the character.
Not necessarily trauma bond, but it's like it immediately connects, and that's something that was like I thought of because I've heard this expressed. I don't know if anybody ever watched like How I Met Your Mother, but one of the things that the directors and the writers and everybody kind of talked about, because like eventually you have to introduce the kid's mom, because like otherwise you just totally like killed your premise. But that character, after 8+ years of being talked about and teased, has to immediately connect with the audience, and the audience has to love her immediately. And when I stepped into this, all of a sudden I was like, these characters, like they feel 3-dimensional, and I'm not getting just needless exposition just for the sake of exposition. I get the history and I get the relationships through the text, through like the conversations, and it isn't dragging on forever. So I'm not.
It doesn't feel like, from what I've seen, it doesn't feel like millennial Marvel writing.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad, whether people like that or not. But like when it's bad, oh boy, it's bad. When it's good, hey, you get Endgame. But like, but I also think that that's like the peak of what you're going to get with that sort of writing. And let's be honest, it's still junk food. This, basically it's very, the game is meant to be very introspective, right? Like you're dealing with, this whole concept of everybody's going to die if like you fail. Like millions of people at like age 32 are going to die next year, and then 31, and then 30. And then, because that's the premise. Going. And like billions of people have already died.
Yeah.
So you're living in this kind of post-apocalyptic world with this Cthulhuian eldritch horror that reminds you that it's there every day.
Yeah.
And you can try to do something, or, you can either have kids and hope the next generation figures it out, or you can like get on the boat, Shinji.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I said, it starts with this really strong premise, and then you have to have characters that are mature and sell that premise, even if they're like somewhat immature or somewhat like a little goofy. As long as they stay, as long as you can tell that the silliness or goofiness is in relation to trying to mask something or trying to hide something, or for like the other characters' benefits, that brings depth to that. Without depth, without like this like really good writing, then like the whole premise would fall apart.
There's not really any goofiness I've seen so far.
Well, I've seen like the redhead make some jokes and stuff, some wisecracks and be a little silly, be a little whimsical.
I mean, but it's not like forced comedy.
Right. No,
It
that's what I'm
literally
saying. Like the
leads
difference
into
between like Marvel writing and stuff like that.
yeah.
It's there's a I think it was Josh Whedon who like actually said something similar. It's like you can be dark, you can be dreary, you can be depressing, but tell a joke. Because you do need moments of levity.
Mm-hmm. Except Age of
But
Ultron
like
is
because it helps
terrible.
with the pathos. If you have too much like darkness, it's a hard balance. And
Yeah.
most games like we're dark, we're super dark, we're edgy, but then they tell like 87 dick jokes.
Yeah.
Chat wants to
Yeah.
know if we've talked about pairing and how they're so horrible at pairing in games. I too am not great at pairing in games.
But
And
this is a
that's
quick time event.
it is, but there is a
I know.
little bit of a timing where pairing is obviously a little bit more challenging versus dodging.
For,
So
for
I've been
the
finding. Go ahead, Adam.
for the viewers out there, think if they played Lost Odyssey, that's
Yeah.
what it's like. But without the circle, so you just have to kind of figure. I'm pretty good at.
You have to
parrying
read
in
their
this
moves
game.
like it's Dark Souls.
Dodge, I'm really bad at.
See, I got the dodge. I really enjoy dodging, and then that's where I need to practice parrying. Same thing with No Rest for the Wicked, because that's something that I'm like, any perk in that game that's like you can get a benefit from parrying. I'm like, I'm not taking that perk because I'm not gonna parry because I'm not good at it. I gotta practice and get better. But I love that aspect because especially when it comes down to the turn-based combat, it isn't just like press button, face roll, and and just kind of set it, forget it, or what have you. You're actively paying attention, and your success does depend on it. You'll see here, I get hit for a little bit of damage, and it has variability to it, which feels really good. Makes you watch and have to learn, and the enemies have different attacks, so it's not like, okay, I got the timing down for this enemy. Oh, is this enemy doing a quick attack, or are they doing kind of a build-up attack?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of really plays out. So there is an aspect that it's like if you can't parry and dodge, that this game might prove a challenge, but they also bring in difficulty. They also bring in difficulty. They have a story mode. They basically like, if you just want to experience the story, here you go. I think that's fair, because like, so for anybody like GT out there who's like, I struggle with this, it's like, no, but this is the combat wise. I'm like, I really hope that Square Enix is paying attention. I really hope they're like, oh, okay, let's do something like this, because when I think about it, when I look at I know Joker, you were talking about like maybe we'll get you back next week to rant about what's going on with Final Fantasy 14. Like there's the elemental affinities, like damage, and that exists here in Expedition 33. You have the aspect where you can absorb, like an element. It's like, oh, I've spec'd up enough that it's like, oh, if I cast fire on this fire enemy, oh, I just healed them. Like, okay, this is the kind of strategy where you're kind of wanting to know and try out your build,
turn your brain on and engage with the game and the mechanics.
Yeah. And your reward is a great story, like a great, thing that is just stepping into every environment. And they bring back an open world for an RPG. That was something that like I like I said, I was covering the game slightly, but also trying to remain somewhat in the dark and stepping out. And all of a sudden I'm running around in an open world and I can still get into combat and I can find different areas. I was like, this is great. And
then when you rest at your bonfire, your Dark Souls bonfire, it resets.
Yeah.
So you can, you have that. It gives players choices, right? So it doesn't bog you down with a bunch of like bullshit. And then when it comes to, like, okay, do you want to rest? Well, if you rest, you're going to have like, if you choose to rest here, you're going to have all these enemies come back. And like, you're like, well, I could farm that then. Yes. Or maybe that was like way harder than I should have been, and I barely survived. So maybe I go back a little bit.
To me, it was like playing old school Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it gives you options. I love options.
Like I grew up, like I was born in 75. I'm 50 years old. So I was playing like the Nintendo Final Fantasy games, and me and my friends would have to call each other on the landline phone to talk about where we were. And it just brought back the exploration. And even in that little area, you could go, there's like tangents, there's caves that you can go in and find stuff. It brought back that immediate like endorphin serotonin rush.
Yeah.
And it just basically brought back my childhood. I was like, oh my gosh, I could explore. Like, But
Yeah, they've
now,
spent so much time trying to reinvent the wheel with these games that
yeah, and you just got to do this.
Who knew they had it right the first time?
Right.
Yeah, and then you
The
just
wheel
iterate on
just
that,
works. What? No,
No, I thought we
Get
needed to
out.
be
Shocker!
square.
Lightning crackle, lightning crackle, lightning crackle. Revelation.
Now,
But,
Kendrick in chat says that they hope that there's a demo as they currently unsure how they feel about dodge and parry in a turn-based game. That's like, I do think that that might be a possibility down the road, but the demo truly is like locked behind Game Pass because
yeah,
you go and sub to Game Pass for a month, you
Yeah.
kind of have a demo. So like Game Pass does offer that in terms of it. We talked about renting. And you go from there. Oh, one thing like we're gonna see here, if you guys, anybody who's watching the video version of the podcast, this is something that really was exciting and surprising. I went into this one area. It says danger, and I'm like, oh, does that mean that the area's got roaming monsters and stuff like that? Like if I clear an area, it's gonna say safe or something like that. So I step in here, and there's a great big old super boss, and it's something that like if I was skilled enough, I think I could actually fight the boss. But being that I was underleveled and more, just got absolutely decimated. And there's a part of me that appreciates that discoverability early in the game, that it isn't necessarily going to just hold my hand. And this obviously isn't where the story isn't locked behind me all of a sudden getting good and being able to beat it. But it was just something where I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm excited.
Level scaling and its consequences need to be studied.
Now, GT in chat says, I don't think Final Fantasy has had a good story since Final Fantasy X. And then Adam, you kind of alluded to this a bit in the pre-show. And I was like, no, save it for the show. You talked already about Lost Odyssey, which I get Lost Odyssey vibes. This was Mistwalker, kind of the Final Fantasy for Xbox 360. Truly an incredible game. I'm glad that people can still play it. And if they've never played Lost Odyssey, that's another one to check out. But you also mentioned Final Fantasy X. I'm gonna let you kind of share some thoughts that you're having there.
So like it reminded me of Final Fantasy X because just like Lost Odyssey, you can go off and do different things that nowadays it's like you're locked. It almost feels like you're locked in a tunnel. Mm-hmm. Point A to point B, and that's it.
Yeah. Whereas I was worried about that when I first stepped in here because I was like, the first part, obviously, it's driving an arrow to forward. Go to here, go to this next point, go to this next point. And I was like, gosh, like I feel that. And then all of a sudden you're out in the open world and you're going and exploring.
Like with 16, you have like the illusion of the open world where it still has the design logic used in Final Fantasy 14, honestly, for a lot of the maps and whatnot.
Yeah.
Whether you like that or hate it. But if you go and you do quests, like it doesn't feel like there's a point in doing them. They're just there to like an MMO quest. They're just there to be there.
They're just there.
They're just there to because not to get into a Final Fantasy 14 rant, but like the campaign for Dawn Trail, it had so much filler that you could have taken 20, 30 quests out of that game, and still been fine. But and a lot of RPGs do this as well. It's like, well, here's content for the sake of content. But it's not good content. It's not filling content. You don't care. Yeah. You do it arbitrarily, mindlessly.
Just trying to fill time.
And this game doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
The thing that made me realize like I miss Final Fantasy X is actually just the whole turn-based aspect of the game. Like it is pure turn-based.
You see the order. You see the order on the just like you did in 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you could skip your turn, you could heal, you could do an item real quick, but I just love the fact that it's like a mixture to me, because I never really touched the Persona games, Lost Odyssey and Final Fantasy X. That to me, it's like a melding of both. You have the fantasy aspect of Final Fantasy, the exploration, the timing for dodges and parries like Lost Odyssey, and this whole fantastical story overall. Like it's just, to me, I know you said it. I said it. Game of the year. already.
Oh yeah, easily.
This is
It's definitely.
I
a
mean,
contender.
Grand Theft Auto is going to come out this year, so that's
Yeah.
largely going to be
Yeah.
game of the year.
It's-
But
obviously
like,
everybody's
It-
waiting.
It's
for
already
that
a
game.
foregone
it's definitely a
conclusion.
contender, and it is probably the like. And I haven't played many games this year, namely because I
But-
stepped away for so long.
But
But
what's amazing, it's for a
yeah.
small studio, 30 people,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're already saying this is game of the
That's
like,
the
this
future
could
of
be game of
gaming.
the year.
because they're allowed to take more risks, they don't have this insane overhead.
It's so beautiful.
When you're making a $300 million game, like that's where a lot of people are like, we got to
What
be
was it?
as
Ubisoft
possible.
credits on Shadows was like what, fucking 3 hours long or some shit.
I think didn't they lay off like 19,000 people and they're still a
Yeah.
company? So it's
Yes,
like
they did.
they have a huge amount of overhead and expense that goes out the door every single payday. And if you're not releasing games and products and people aren't buying them, that money dries up real quick with that many people. 30
Mhm.
people allows for a lot more conversation like we have on the podcast, right? Like all of a sudden, ideas are being floated around. You're able to get down and find the fun. Is this fun? Yes or no? And the answer ends up being something where it's like, okay, cool. We're going to, and I think the other thing with Expedition 33, before we kind of move into a marathon rent, is that you just, passion is a key element in game development. And this game has that. Like you feel
This
that
is somebody's
from the
pet
moment.
project.
This is somebody's vision. They had a vision for it. So like, I'm sure things changed. Like, oh, it turns out
Oh, yeah,
I thought
obviously.
this, it wasn't fun. So we cut it, but they can do that because they didn't spend, 200 million, like 100 or $10 million
Their R&D
on building
department didn't
a
right.
feature that it's like, well, we got to keep it in because it's like, like, okay, no, like we'll cut that. We'll add this in. Oh, this turned out was really good. We're going to lean more into that, but a clear vision, a clear picture for what the game is. And honestly, Ken, I do hope that you do take an opportunity, whether through Game Pass or you just decide to buy it, because it's also $50, which helps out dramatically. It's not like, hey, I need you to spend $70+ in hopes that you're going to get an experience out of it. You're going to feel it. It's going to be worth every penny, in my opinion. But if you are concerned, Game Pass is a valid option that you can just toss this on PC. But if you're only on PlayStation, then I get that, it's a cost regard. Like there's no demo out there available right now for you on that. Any other? Go ahead.
GT James, he commented about, back in the day you had the 30 devs,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of reminded of, because we have the Oblivion remake come out or remaster.
Yeah.
That used to be kind of how Bethesda was too, right? Back in their golden day with like Daggerfall and Morrowind and Oblivion,
Yeah.
A lot of people like Skyrim. I think Skyrim is the dumbing down of the entire Elder Scrolls formula.
Yeah. Oblivion
We're not going to get into it.
was much better than Skyrim, in my opinion.
Same thing with Fallout, going from Fallout 3 to Fallout,
I will
4.
say this about Oblivion, though. What's funny is that the new generation, like you brought up a while ago, the new generation never even played Oblivion.
Yeah.
And now
They're
that they're playing it, they're
like what an actual RPG looks like.
But now that they're playing it, they're like, wait, this is actually a finished product. This is what you used to play.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
An
like
actual
when we
finished
forgive,
product.
Now you know why we're all so salty about every microtransaction, half-finished product that releases on the market.
You sold us horse armor twice. No,
Oh God! Oh God!
It all started and ended with Oblivion. It all started and
Leroy
ended.
Jenkins.
But the point is, back in the day, Todd Howard probably, because he's the go-to guy. It was easier to get in on the teams. Now you have teams that are bloated up to thousands of people, hundreds if not thousands of people.
Yeah.
And imagine trying to micromanage that. You can't.
Right.
It's impossible. And so when you start having these big bloated teams, they start working on systems basically as like cells. Like you have the gameplay people here, you have the story people here, you have the graphics people here, you have, the level designers here. And instead of it being like 20 people that come together at lunch and like throw their ideas or can like walk across the room and see what each other are doing, it's these big, compounds now. And
Bungie,
it's like coming together like these bloated machines, and it doesn't work. And I think that's why we're seeing these bloated budgets. That's why we're seeing the increase in games, but we're also seeing a lack of quality when it comes to games. We're seeing a lot of jank in these games.
I think that's a
you look
great
at
way
Marathon,
to transition.
Marathon.
Yeah.
A lot of out of
Marathon,
touch too.
And like, who asked for this? Who wants this? No, I'm serious. And like, so you go online and you hear this narrative going around going, It's not for you. Okay, who's it for?
Right.
Like drop the meme stunner like at the end of that. Okay, who's it for? Who asked for this? Oh, well, it's for people who like PvP. Okay.
Okay.
So why is it got a price tag? Because people who like PvP games, they're playing Marvel Rivals, they're playing Fortnite, they're playing all these, Apex Legends. This just looks like worse Apex Legends.
Right.
You got Warzone, you have all these games, especially if you're trying to break in. Well, and then people are like, well, it's trying to break into the console market because you already have extraction shooters like Tarkov and Hunt Shadow. Hunt Shadow is in the console market, but details. So like who's okay, so we're charging a $40 premium price for this game that had like 300 people working on it for I've heard estimates of like 6 years with consultation from like Dr. Lupo and stuff like that. So you've had a bunch of streamers come in and like, because streamers know what they're talking about, for better or worse.
Do they really though?
they know what they want when they know what they don't want is what I would say. Like we as customers don't necessarily know what we want. We think we do,
we know
but
what we don't want.
But we definitely know what we don't want. And people can say, well, that's like negative, that's cynical, whatever. It is what it is, and everybody knows it's true. But like, so you have this like this conversation, like, well, it's not for you, and then so it's like, okay, well, maybe it's for the sweaty, try hard MLG players. Okay, cool. Then you see like the PC gameplay. It's like, this game has 1 million aim assists. It's basically an Autobot. Or like an aimbot. Oh, not an Autobot. It's basically an aimbot on M&K. So people are like, well, okay, so it's not for the sweats. It's not for the casuals, because the casuals, they want a story. They want, like, you're putting this out against Borderlands 4 because you're scared of Grand Theft Auto. If you're a casual player and you want a game where you can run around and shoot AI and get loot.
Yeah.
What game are you going to play?
Borderlands 4.
You're going to play Borderlands 4.
Borderlands 4. Yeah.
Why not delay the game to like February or something like that? Like get it all the way away.
Well, they don't want to do it in February because they're going to compete with. So Bungie has set themselves up to. Now I have a cynical take on this. I have a realistic and I have a cynical take.
Okay.
The realistic one is, if I was being very generous, which I am the most humble, generous commentator in the Bungie sphere, and I'm always right. If I was being generous, I would say that they don't want to compete with Project Apollo and their other project. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but basically they're changing the model for Destiny, where instead of, at least I believe they're changing the model, instead of having one big expansion and then a bunch of like small seasons, you're just getting 2 expansions a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to have the project of, now maybe there's something in between those, but they haven't really said anything. So we don't know.
Yeah, is it Frontiers and Apollo, or are they now melded together?
Frontiers was the overarching project, where Apollo and something else are the 2 projects that come in that Frontiers bundle.
Got it.
So you have, the one game that's coming out in the end of summer, and then you have one game that's coming out in winter. Okay. And winter could be anywhere between September to February.
Yep.
They like to release in February, so that's probably why they wouldn't release Marathon. But if Marathon gets delayed, it gets delayed a year. Because they want the same release window. Because they'll want that cycle where they're Destiny, Marathon, Destiny, Destiny, Marathon, Destiny.
Yep.
And then Marathon will of course have its like seasons and stuff. But it'll probably have like big refreshes once a year that like get people to buy in again or whatnot. I have to imagine. It's like, it'll probably be like a buy your season pass, or something like once a year.
Yeah.
So with that, and that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that Bungie knows that this is a mediocre and unfinished project. They're already kind of hinting at that. They're talking about, well, we're going to develop this game with our community. You could do that with Destiny. And the reason that you could do that with Destiny is because Destiny was the only game like that in the space. Okay. Now we have, 101 free-to-play games that are PvP oriented. Now we have, there's already established games like Tarkov and Hunt Shadow and whatnot. And I'm not saying don't try to break into this industry. What I am saying is you can't come with a mediocre and unfinished product and then your selling point be, well, we're
we lost Joker brief.
understandable. Because like you look at Titanfall, right? When I talk about gimmicks, it's like you look at Titanfall, you see that trailer for Titanfall, you see the pilot gameplay, you see the Titan gameplay, you're like, I understand this. I get it. I read it. I know why I need to play this. I don't know why. Like, I'm looking at this. I don't know why I need to play this. I don't know what I'd be missing out if I played this over Borderlands.
What made it worse was when Bungie did their reveal, right? The way they were talking, like what Milo from Rolled Waffles said, it's the same thing. Like, they were talking about more or less like, who do you play when you're playing the game, instead of actually talking about.
Well, they were more concerned with showing off their like
in Marathon. You play characters, correct?
Yes.
Your preset character.
You pick six heroes.
I'm not into the hero shooter, and no offense to like Marvel, right? But I'm like, man, just let me make my own character. And
I would be more attached to the character instantly if it was a creative character. And that's just how my brain works. I would care about loot more if it's like something I'm customizing.
And 90% of the abilities of each of each of the choices you have are basically like, oh, that's from Destiny.
Well, so like the kind of silly thing with the Destiny thing is apparently, allegedly, hypothetically, allegedly, according to rumors, there was a build of Destiny 3 that had basically your open areas were dark zones from like you would go out into the world and you'd go on patrol, and these areas were had like dark zones in them, but that got canned. And I'm not saying when I look at Marathon I see Neomuna. I'm just saying when I look at Marathon I see Neomuna with less textures.
Way less textures. Oh my gosh.
But like when it comes to textures and then things like that, I'm like,
that can be baked.
That can be baked in alpha, and it could end up. I'm actually not very.
This right here looks like it's
enjoy
straight off of Europa.
Yeah.
And it just looks so unfinished to a lot of the people that are unsure about.
But I think the big problem is they're calling this an alpha, and we're 6 months out. That's a beta.
6 months.
This is an advertisement, because when you think about it, it's okay. Yeah, it's 5 months out, not 6 months, which is even worse. But then you're like, okay, wait, but it also has to do gold certification. So we're actually like 3 or 4 months out from the game, the 1.0 version of the game having to be finalized while they go and work on the 1.x patches.
I almost think it's like they're covering their butt on the whole, like,
so this is where alpha, like,
so like if it fails, they could just go and push it out further.
Yeah, so this is where the cynical part of me comes in. I think management's looking for an out. I think they have a contractual obligation to get this game out. I think they want to be tied to royalties on it. They want to be tied to profit sharing on it, and they're going to push it out. Whatever, Marathon be damned, quality be damned, customers be damned, and then they're going to take their golden parachute and they're going to leave. That's the cynical, because it feels really unfinished and mediocre, and I think everybody on the project knows it's unfinished and mediocre. I would be gobsmacked if they didn't know that, if they didn't realize this. If they were so married to the project that they couldn't see its flaws intrinsically, I would be shocked.
This, to me, as somebody who was like played Destiny for the PvP, like I dabbled a little bit in the PvE, but I really enjoyed the PvP. The PvP community in Destiny has been screwed over. I don't know if that's changed, because essentially with whatever they were end up doing, I just kind of walked away from the game, and I haven't jumped back in. I haven't bought any new expansions, haven't given them a single dime. And so it's like, that's really rare for me, because Destiny was kind of like, I'm going to jump back into some Destiny, play it, 3 months out of the year and jump out. But now it's like, I'm so separate.
4 years of waiting, but I've finally got some bad PvP maps.
Okay, so they finally added some maps.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it's like
2 of them rehashes.
In my mind, I look at Marathon as the reason why they didn't invest in the PvP in Destiny. They were
100%.
And they totally gave up on Gambit too.
Gambit, which is this. Like why wasn't this just a Gambit refresh, right?
Well, Gambit refresh, or why didn't they just add this as a mode in Destiny? Like all of a sudden, it's like, hey, all right, in Destiny, we've added in an extraction, and
kind
of
aspect.
People
are like, well, they can develop Marathon and Destiny at the same time, blah 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 blah.
No, they can't.
Because what we're ultimately circling the drain on this is like the effects that Marathon has had on Destiny as a developing product. But it's not just Marathon though. it's Matter. It's so you had Matter that
Gummy
we know,
Bears.
Marathon, and then there was like 3 other projects
Gummy Bears
that
is another
they
one.
put money and time, resources, and then they had the Sony one that spun off. So we know that Bungie was wasting time, resources, and development power on these other products, these other IPs, while like basically leeching money from Destiny. Destiny diminished. It spent more time bad than good. I think a lot of people will like point to like, oh well, Witch Queen was good, Final Shape was good, yeah, but you didn't continue playing the game after that, did you? Maybe some did, but we can look at the numbers. We know people didn't. We know the exit numbers were high, the attach rates were low. Like it is what it is. Like anybody saying otherwise is an abject denial of reality. I hate to say it. So we know that Destiny suffered because these games in development. We know that they also suffered because here's the thing. You can, if you have one Lars Bakken who has been working at, Bungie for 20 something years, 30 years, and then you move him to a project that's like something else, you're going to have to find, hire, and replace people, and you're going to have to just hope they're kind of as good, but they're not going to be because they're not as experienced with your tools. So you have this whole ramping up of teams that you have to replace people, and you have people coming out that don't know how to use your tools because your tools are all proprietary, and there's like 40 years of jank in them. Because all this is this is the Tiger engine, which is just a modified Blam engine, which is what they were using to make Marathon back in the day. So there's like there's OG Marathon code in the new Marathon, which is kind of wild. But and the reason that they stuck with this engine and the Tiger engine and the Blam engine is because they didn't know if they could replicate shooting. So like when they went from Halo to Destiny, they're like, oh, well, we got to like figure out, we're going to shop for an engine, or are we going to build a proprietary? And a lot of their problems have come from the fact that they chose a proprietary, which is funny, is this game and Destiny has all the same problems as Halo has, even Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite Slipspace engine is just the Blam engine.
Yep.
And you can tell one of the biggest problems with these games are menus. That's why there's not player trading in this either.
No.
There's not a player market in this. There's not, and then they took out communication. So there's not proximity chat in this game. So
they did that
talk about like who this game's for.
They were like trying to keep it a safe space, and it's like,
isn't that
just
took out
an option that
proximity
people
chat after Halo 2. So they took out proximity chat after Halo 2. Halo 3 didn't have proximity chat.
Nope.
And they took it out, according to Jamie Gersimer, who was an ex-Bungie dev, because they had some female players who talked to them about their experience. And, it was the 2000. I'm not going to make any excuses for people. It is what it is. We all know what happened. And so they decided, well,
but isn't
we're not
it just something you just opt out of? Like, it's like, I'm going to.
No, it's just not there at all.
There's it isn't.
Yeah. They should just be something that you opt out of. We're all adults here,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the game could be rated T for teen. It looks like it probably will be. But we're all adults here. We all know how to opt out. But that's when you start looking at like, okay, so it doesn't have proximity chat. So content creators aren't going to be able to make clips. Nope. So that's going to be an instant turn off for them. Like, yes, there's a lot of content creators supporting it now. There's also a lot of content creators making a lot of money supporting it right now. And that's not saying that they're getting paid by Bungie. That's that they're creating content. That's just how this works. It's pay for play. If they say good things about the game, they'll continue to have access to the game. And then, maybe they drop it, maybe they continue it. There's a lot of Destiny content creators, and this isn't me speaking ill of anybody, but Destiny has struggled, right? And there's every time Destiny starts to struggle, every time there's a new game, Destiny content creators look for an out. We saw this with Borderlands, we saw this with Cyberpunk, we saw this, we're seeing it again with Warframe for the 87th time. So people are latching to this game and hyping it up probably more than they should.
I've only seen
it is
negative.
An alpha, and it should have harsh feedback. Really harsh feedback.
The content creators I watch, they're playing it, but they look so bored.
Yeah,
they look.
And it's a boring game.
Bored.
It's a boring type of game. Because you're running around like, I mean, when was the last time, other than these bots, like have these people even gotten into PvP? like we're watching on the screen, you know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I've basically tuned it out.
Yeah.
That's how uninteresting it looks. Where when you had the Clear Obscura gameplay playing, I was like locked in, you know. And this has nothing to do with interest, you know, like my own personal interest, because I'm more interested in a first-person shooter. You know, this is my wheelhouse. Basically, I want this game to do good because, you know, hey, when I talk about content creators shifting games, I'm not like throwing shade, right?
No,
Like,
it's legit. Like, especially if you're like, oh man, I've been locked into this game for 10 years. I was watching some videos, you know, from Star Citizen content creators that it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 12 years. I was like, dude, I get it, man. I covered
I want this game to be good because I like
13
Destiny
years.
PvP.
And it's like, I love the game, but at some point you're like, yeah, I gotta breathe a little bit.
Yeah, I like Destiny's story until I didn't.
Yeah.
Malin Games, who
pretty much
who's a friend of the channel, I did a react video to him basically just rage quitting Destiny.
Yep. I watched it. Yep.
And yeah, so you know, the story is, you know, tankered off. But like with Marathon, there's just it seems to have like a lot of systems. This is what I was talking about earlier, where you have these insular teams designing systems. You have an art direction that's like, you know, take it or leave it. It's going to be really hard for your average consumer to probably buy into this art style, I have to imagine. But people said the same thing about Borderlands, right? You know, the game that's going head to head, because that was a very artistic, cel shady, cartoony game. When in an industry or time period where like Call of Duty was the thing, right? Where like you play these realistic military shooters. What's this cartoony game? So, you know, but the art style is going to be a hard hurdle for a lot of people. Then you have these, you know, it's just PvP. Okay. But the PvP doesn't look all that engaging. There doesn't look like to be a reason to engage in PvP.
Right.
Then you have the whole, you lose your loot, which appeals to, you know, high stakes, Gamba, you know, people who like this sort of game. But if they like this sort of game, I almost guarantee you they're playing, oops, I didn't see this. They're playing, you know, Hunt Shadow or Tarkov, right? They're already invested in those games and those communities. So Bungie has to snipe these people from already entrenched communities. Like, again, you know, I keep asking, who is this game for? People keep telling me this game isn't for you. It doesn't look like it's for anyone. It doesn't look like anybody asked for
even
this.
extraction shooter players want solo queuing, and you can't solo.
Yeah, there's no solo queue.
You have to be in a squad.
You're forcing you're forcing threes. Well, if I'm going to be forced to like get a friend and play a game and shoot bots and get loot, I'm going to go play Borderlands.
Yeah. Or Tarkov. Play my solo.
But well, and this is just from the content creator brain.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you have. I'm not going to name those content creators.
Well, no, just from a content creator brain. If I'm a Destiny content creator and I'm looking at covering either Marathon or, because a lot of Destiny creators will dip into Borderlands. They did it with Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm sitting here making guides, making reviews, making content, what am I going to cover? Am I going to cover the niche avant-garde extraction shooter that, like, you know, maybe some of the PvP people that watch my
if you're unestablished, it makes sense to do. Like, it's like you make a niche, right? Because there's going to be an audience for it. But if you're like established, if you've got subscribers, like,
or am I going to cover Borderlands, which has more draw?
Right.
It has more draw. It has more topics to talk about too. Like, what are you going to talk about in Marathon? Okay, here's how this map layout works. You have 20 videos, maybe. Like 20 good videos. There's going to be weapon reviews where everybody reviews every little fucking piece of gear and whatnot. But like, that's scraping the bottom of the barrel. There's like maybe 20 good videos here. Where Borderlands, you know, you have build guides, you have, you know, game reviews, you have mission guides, you know, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. And there's going to just be so many people looking for that content when that game comes out. So and the reason that that's important is because when you have this plethora of people covering a game, as opposed to not covering a game, the game that's not being covered gets lost in the noise. You know, so, you know,
correct.
You'd have to have a pretty good excuse for content creators to cover it that would cover multiple games. And I don't see it. I see, yes, some indie.
This would have been more successful if it was a battle royale. And I know people talk about battle royale fatigue, but still people are interested in playing that genre.
This would have been more successful if it was a mode with a single player game attached to it that people could get into and enjoy the world of.
Right.
It
may player story driven narrative, and then it's like, hey, here's the multiplayer.
I know we want to wrap this up, but do you guys remember the first Titanfall?
Yes.
Yep. I played
where it had that campaign, you had the missions, and I think it would have been better if it was like that. If you want to do the always online, the PvP type aspect, I think if you do what original Titanfall did, maybe you would have drawn more people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And who knows? I've heard rumors Titanfall 3 is actually being worked on.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, Joker, where can people find you, man?
You can find me over on Darkside Royal, the YouTube channel Darkside Royalty, and at DSR_Joker on the Twitter net. And
Adam, where can people find you?
Just on Twitter for right now. Chef Adam Bowers on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I do have a Twitch, I do have a YouTube, but nothing's really uploaded on that yet. I didn't really have the equipment.
I'm not sure how I feel about these tentacles. I've seen enough anime to know where that's going.
No. But real quick, if Joker is right with the 6-year development of Marathon, then that lines up with the drought of PvP on Destiny 2. It lines up.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I would say it started I know we're closing up, but it started 2 years in pre-production with advising from other teams, and then 4 years actual production. And now it's ramped up to a team of 300 people. And if you're telling me 300 people couldn't make a difference on Destiny, I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening in the audio or in a VOD form. We were going to be doing, we do the podcast every week. We're going to be playing around with the times. Obviously, today we did it at noon. We've been doing it at 3, but there's been a little bit of conflicts in my schedule. But I'm back. We'll have our regular roundtable rocking and rolling for you guys. So thank you so much. If you enjoyed the content and you're on YouTube, hit that like button. Otherwise, just have a great day. We'll leave it at that. All right, everybody, we're wrapping up, and we will see you guys next week.